Today I'm going to be preaching on Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 through 7. So that's also the scripture I would encourage you to look at and that I'll be speaking about as we begin a week looking at the theme of humility and becoming humble like a child. Humility is actually one of the single most important attitudes, attributes, virtues, whichever word you want to use, I think, in order to grow spiritually. Without humility, without openness to learning, without recognizing that we have space in our life, where areas in our life where we need to grow, we need to improve, without humility, we are not going to advance far in the spiritual life. And I really think that's just true across the board. And in Matthew chapter 18 and verses 1 to 7, the disciples come to Jesus. And think about this. I mean, now we're well into the Gospel of Matthew. It's 28 chapters. We're in chapter 18. And the disciples come asking, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And this is just my read of the text. You may read it or hear it differently. But I think the disciples are asking this question from a position of, which one of us is the greatest? Or what do I need to do to be the greatest? What do I need to do to be above my brothers and sisters, to be numero uno? Because the human ego is insatiable in terms of wanting attention, wanting things for ourselves. And so Jesus responds to that question by putting a child in the midst of them. And I am absolutely sure the disciples had no idea what he was doing. And I'm sure they thought, is Jesus confused? Did he not hear the question? And Jesus says, truly I tell you, unless you change, so he's addressing the fact that they're thinking about this greatness wrongly. Unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven, much less be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. You're not even going to enter it unless you become like a child. And then verse 4, our verse for the day is, whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Humility is the door through which we enter into the possibility of growing as followers of Christ. We live in a time when there is so much arrogance, there's so much pride, selfishness, condescension. All these sorts of attitudes and behaviors are negative behaviors. They're contrary to spiritual growth and spiritual maturity. And people who consistently display these behaviors are not people we want to be learning from, listening to, or emulating. We want to be humble, teachable, trusting as a child is in the most loving parent. So I pray that as we go through today and as we go through this week, that you will seek to cultivate an attitude of humility and teachability and dependence on God.